time to catch up with Debrief, your quick wrap-up of 30-year-old's top stories from the week.
Despite the cloudy weather,
no siraj, no help.
Breaking news out of Qatar, where the Reuters news agency is reporting that there have been several blasts heard in the capital Doha.
This is incredibly poignant timing, considering that Doha was the place where, of course, the delegation was meeting to try and broker a semblance of a ceasefire deal.
This is the first known Israeli strike on Qatari soil.
Israel acted wholly independently, and we take full responsibility for this action.
I'm not thrilled about the whole situation. It's not a good situation.
This attack requires an Arab, Islamic and international response to confront such aggression.
Al-Thani says a response from the region will happen, but it is under discussion to ensure it is something meaningful.
Qatar has slammed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, saying he has killed any hope for hostages to be released, while critics of Israel accuse it of crossing the red line.
Whatever happens, it is truly making the GCC countries question whether America can be trusted.
Well, activists aiming to break Israel's naval blockade of Gaza say the main boat of their flotilla has been attacked while in Tunisian waters.
The organization reported that one of its main vessels had been struck by a suspected drone, but Tunisian authorities rejected that claim. The Israeli army says it's intercepted a missile fired from Yemen. It comes after at least 37 people were killed on Wednesday in Israeli airstrikes on Houthi-controlled areas in the capital Sana'a.
To Gaza now, where Palestinians in the north of the Strip woke up to Israeli military aircraft dropping thousands of leaflets telling residents to evacuate immediately. But for families who've been displaced multiple times, the question of where in the battered enclave is safe remains unanswered.
Israel continues its relentless assault to seize Gaza City. Well, since Friday, Israel has flattened tower after tower, sheltering hundreds of Palestinians, most of whom have been displaced many times before.
It's not about the release of prisoners or hostages or defeating Hamas. This is about ethnic cleansing.
French President and his government are on thin ice again. Emmanuel Macron's Prime Minister, François Bayrou, is facing a confidence vote in Parliament this Monday.
He called the vote himself. Why? Because France is in a huge amount of debt, nearly $4 trillion to be exact. Almost double the limit allowed by the European Union. Bayrou says he needs 50 billion in savings, but so far he hasn't been able to get Parliament to support him.
France has not had a balanced budget for 51 years, and every year for the last 51 years, spending has increased, deficits have recurred, and debts have accumulated. You have the power to overthrow the government, but not to erase reality.
France is once again searching for a new Prime Minister. François Bayrou was in the seat for just 9 months, but he was overwhelmingly voted out in a confidence vote in Parliament.
There was no great surprise about François Bayrou's self-imposed demise.
200 people have been arrested across France as nationwide anti-government protests spread across the country. 80,000 police have been deployed.
France woke up to riots, fire and roadblocks as the Block Everything protests began.
Block Everything protests are spreading across France, with police arresting hundreds of people. The unrest comes on the same day that President Emmanuel Macron's fifth Prime Minister in less than 2 years took office.
There's huge anger at the Emmanuel Macron regime, if we put it that way. His administration is seen as a failing administration at the moment. He's appointing prime ministers constantly. The latest, François Bayrou, he only lasted 9 months. The one before him, Michel Barnier, only lasted 3 months. And now the latest, Sébastien Lecornu, we'll have to see how long he survives.
And even more top stories coming your way in the News and Brief. Nepal's youth has set parliament on fire and forced out the country's prime minister. What lit the fuse was a social media ban imposed last week, following viral discourse about the country's Nepo babies, children of the political elite living lavishly in a country where most young people struggle to make a living. Protests began in the capital Kathmandu on Monday and spread rapidly to other parts of the country. At least 50 people were killed and thousands more were injured as protesters accused the police of opening fire on the crowds. 2 cabinet ministers resigned and a curfew was imposed on Monday. The social media ban was also rolled back on Tuesday, but that wasn't enough and the protests raged on. Demonstrators targeted government officials and torched the parliament building and politicians' residences. Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli resigned and the army took over. Nepal's Gen Z then backed the country's former Chief Justice to take over. And Sushila Karki was appointed interim premier, becoming the first woman to do so.
This revolution was not just for a day or two, it was like for years and years people were longing for something like this, and we are so happy.
Now in the days to come, may there be no such corruption. Thousands and millions of young people have had to go to abroad. May those days never come again. I want to say that all the young people who have gone outside should be able to stay in Nepal and find employment.
There's still no end in sight to the war in Ukraine, and Russia's attacks are spilling deeper into Europe. On Wednesday, several Russian drones breached Polish airspace. Warsaw shut down some of the drones with NATO's help and moved on to bolstering its defenses, closing all border crossings with Belarus. Secretary General Mark Rutte called it the largest violation of NATO airspace. Moscow, meanwhile, is dismissing all these claims as it gets ready to further flex its muscles at large-scale military exercises with Minsk. The Kremlin also announced on Friday that it will be suspending peace talks with Ukraine, while blaming the Europeans for muddying the borders. Back in Asia, Thailand's former Prime Minister and billionaire Thaksin Shinawatra was sent to jail on Tuesday after the Supreme Court decided his previous time spent in a hospital detention wouldn't contribute to his 1-year sentence for corruption. Thaksin has been an influential voice in Thai politics. He and his proxies ruled the country for the majority of the past 2 decades. His daughter, also the former Prime Minister, was removed from office in late August, plunging the country into weeks of political chaos. The patriarch had returned to Thailand in 2023 after 15 years of self-imposed exile to serve an 8-year sentence. Barely a day into his first time in jail, he was sent to a hospital's VIP wing and spent the next 6 months there. Thailand's king then changed this sentence to a year and he was released on parole. The dynasty's political party, Pro Thai, was also ousted from government recently, further showing how the powerful family has fallen from grace.
Today is another historic day where he is the first prime minister to go to jail. It weighs heavy. However, we remain in good spirits, both my father and our family.
And gun violence in the United States took lives once again. This time, notably of right-wing internet figure and Trump ally Charlie Kirk, himself a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. The 31-year-old podcaster was attending a debate at a Utah college on Wednesday when a bullet struck his neck as he was answering a question about mass shooting. The FBI started a manhunt and arrested 22-year-old Tyler Robinson as the prime suspect. Graphic footage of the assassination has been making rounds online, alongside the victim's resurfaced comments on divisive issues, sparking discussions across the aisle. And here is a taste of our programs.
The second Africa Climate Summit has concluded in Ethiopia, with the continent declaring its readiness to present a climate model centered on investment to tackle the global crisis. But will Africa's push for homegrown solutions and a unified continental voice to secure fair climate financing ahead of COP30 in Brazil chart a path towards a more sustainable future? Second Africa Climate Summit marked a crucial moment for the continent's climate agenda. That is, transitioning from being viewed solely as vulnerable to emerging as a leader in climate innovation. The resolutions adopted by African leaders and policymakers set the stage for COP30 and beyond, calling for equitable climate finance, African ownership of solutions, and transformative changes in global climate policy. According to the Global Center on Adaptation, Africa requires at least $70 billion annually to adapt to the impacts of the climate crisis. Yet in 2023, it received only $15 billion in adaptation finance. Budget shortfall continues to be a big concern. In July, the International Court of Justice directed nations to honor their international commitments to curb pollution, warning that they could face compensation claims from countries severely affected by climate change.
The race to build real-time universal translators is no longer the stuff of science fiction. From Apple to Google and Meta, the world's biggest tech firms are betting big on breaking language barriers with artificial intelligence. And the numbers show just how fast this market is moving and how disruptive it could become. Apple's new AirPods Pro 3 costs $250 and features live translation. The product launches next week alongside software updates that will extend the function to earlier AirPod models. With 18 million Apple headphones shipped in just one quarter, this feature could put translation in millions of ears overnight. Google's Pixel 10 handset also has voice translate capable of preserving a speaker's tone in another language. Meta is pushing smart glasses with live captions and audio translation, while OpenAI's voice assistant mode offers fluid multi-language support. A Microsoft study shows 98% of translators' work overlaps with AI capabilities. That's a stark warning for a profession already under pressure.
The Turkish women's volleyball team have won their maiden silver medal at the World Championships after narrowly losing 3-2 to favourites Italy in Bangkok. In a rollercoaster match, the Sultans of the Net pushed the world #1 side all the way, forcing a fifth set and actually winning more points. Yet in the decider, Italy pulled away to win it 15-8 and clinch the title for the second time. And that success in Thailand is the latest in 3 glittering years for the Sultans of the Net, which began in July 2023 when the Turkish side won the first of all 3 available trophies that summer after claiming their maiden title in the Nations League, which was followed in September by their first ever triumphs in the European Championship and the World Cup. And they finished the season as the world #1 side for the first time.
It's the furthest that Turkey have ever gotten. Until this edition, the furthest they went wasn't even the semi-final. So the moment they stepped up to play against Japan, they had already made history. And I think a part of this heartbreak of losing out in the final is coming from, as you mentioned, the score being so close, so much so that Turkey even won more points than Italy. So that's where that heartbreak is coming from.